I thought this would be an easy post to write. Me and sadness, we go back a long way. I could write a trilogy about sadness. And last weekend I started to jot down my very long list of all the times sadness came to visit me, a very factual list, until I had to thread it all together to write this piece. And it turned out to be the hardest one I've written and the one I've been most reluctant to share. I sat with it for the last week and it has brought up so much that I thought I had put to bed. And I really didn't feel ready to verbalise any of it. I still don't. I've recorded this and deleted this a few times, but I kept coming back to a conversation I had with a client a few days ago that gave me the courage to just do it. Because that's what healing is, being courageous and honest, even though it's scary. And that client, and maybe you or somebody you know, is living exactly where I was, and this is what it was like. Sadness for me felt like a black, bottomless void that I genuinely could not see any way out of. I was only a child the first time depression arrived. I didn't have a name for it then. I just knew that something in me felt heavier than it should, that the world was different for me than it seemed to be for everyone else, and that I was carrying something that I didn't know how to put down. And that heaviness followed me everywhere. It became so familiar over the years that I stopped noticing it as being separate from me. It felt like this was who I was, and this was how my life would always feel. And for many years, my goal every day was to just survive. Wake up, first thought, get through the day. Go to bed, last thought, I got through today. And then wake up and do it again. Not living, surviving on autopilot. Day by day, sometimes hour by hour, for years. And on the outside, I held it all together. But on the inside, this quiet voice whispering, there's something wrong with me, something fundamentally wrong with me. Other people don't struggle like this. Other people manage. I really believed that I was broken in some unfixable way. I had many periods of deep depression, some that I thought I wouldn't make it through. I had 2 amazing daughters, and after each one, postnatal depression, hospitalised after my second daughter was born, which came with its own cruelty, because the world tells you that that's supposed to be the happiest time of your life. And you look at this tiny person and you absolutely feel the love, but you also feel a darkness that makes no sense and that you are too ashamed to name out loud. And you hide it. Your failure at the most important job you can ever do, be a mother. And when I tried to think of a defining moment when everything changed, it was an ordinary morning. My eldest daughter was 4 years old and I was in bed, unable to get up. And she came in and said, "Mummy, if I help you brush your teeth, will you be able to get out of bed?" 4 years old, and she was already learning how to manage my pain and how to manage me and how to accommodate my darkness. And something in me in that moment broke, and something also opened, because I looked at her and I knew something had to change. I hadn't been able to do it for myself, but I had to do it for her and her little sister. And that is when the real journey began. And it wasn't a straight line, and it wasn't a quick fix, and it wasn't a moment of sudden clarity. It was a decision to stop getting through the days, to stop running from what I was feeling, and to start slowly, terrifyingly, one small step at a time, to start turning towards it. When I talk about turning towards sadness, about sitting with it, I'll be honest about what that actually felt like for me. It was absolutely terrifying, because I didn't just want to run from the sadness. I wanted to run from everything, from everyone, from life itself. There were so many times I did not know how to continue because I wasn't actually living. And what kept me here, what made me choose to stay and face everything, were my 2 daughters. And I tried everything, anything, with the slightest chance of making me feel better. And energetic work was what lifted the heaviness, which is why I'm doing that work now, because it changed my life. But there was one other thing that really changed my relationship with my own sadness. And it wasn't a technique or a book or a course. It was this. I stopped hating myself. Or rather, I began very slowly to try to hate myself less. Because for as long as I could remember, I had been my own worst critic, and how I spoke to myself was harsh and very cruel. And I began to soften that, to speak to myself the way I would speak to someone I loved, and to offer myself compassion, gentleness, acceptance, love, the permission to be struggling without that making me broken. And what I came to understand about my depression was that my sadness was so overwhelming and so all-consuming that I had no choice but to detach from it, to literally shut down for days and weeks at a time, because feeling it fully would have meant being swallowed by it, and I wouldn't have survived that. So the depression, as devastating as it was a form of protection. My system doing the only thing it knew what to do, with something too enormous to feel. Numb it, detach from it, put glass between me and the feeling so I could keep functioning enough to get through the days. And I understand that now, and I have compassion for it, for her, the version of me that was just trying to stay alive. And this has taken me years of slow, painstakingly turning toward myself and turning shame into something that now feels like pride and grit and determination and strength. And those years were messy. 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Years where I thought I would never be fine. And then slowly, quietly, it started to be. The change sometimes happens so slowly you don't even know it's happening until suddenly you realise something small is actually something huge. And for me, last year I was out walking and chatting with a friend, and I said to her, I feel sad. She said, it's okay, you should feel sad. I'd just come out of a long-term relationship. And I had to stop and explain to her that I wasn't saying it because I was struggling. I was saying it because I had just made this new connection. I'm sad, but I'm still here. I'm still present in the day. I'm still enjoying the walk and this friendship. I feel sad and I'm okay. I was happy to feel sad because it meant it no longer had to become depression to get my attention. It could just be a feeling and move through me the way feelings were always designed to do, the way I keep telling you they're meant to be. And that's what healing looks like, not necessarily the absence of sadness, but the ability to feel it and know that you'll survive. And there are still days that are hard, but life on the other side of that work is more real and more full than anything I could have imagined from inside the darkness. The other side isn't perfect. I don't have it all figured out, and the work is never fully done. I'm 52 years old and I've lived with depression and anxiety for as long as I can remember. And when I was in the depths of it, when I was just trying to get through each day, I never imagined I would end up where I am now, that I would actually find my way out of that black hole of despair. And if I can be a dim light for someone else, the proof that the other side exists, then that is worth sharing all of this. And the change doesn't come all at once. It comes through hard work. And ironically for me, it came through training to become a better therapist. My mentor taught me that you cannot take a client where you haven't gone yourself. So I went all the way into every part of myself that I had been running from. The frightened parts, the angry parts, the shamed parts, the parts that judged and criticised. I sat with all of them and I got curious about all of them, and I learned what they were protecting. And slowly they began to soften, and as they softened, something else happened. Space opened up, a capacity that I had never had before, room for something new, fun. I know that might sound small, but for someone who spent decades just trying to survive each day, fun felt and still feels revolutionary. Joy that wasn't immediately followed by the fear of it ending. Adventures, trying new things, connecting with new people, sharing experiences, seeing life through a completely different lens, everything a little brighter, more interesting, excited to start each day. It feels like getting out of jail. It feels like freedom. So now I have no rules, no pressure, no need to conform or change to fit someone else's expectations. And I'm still doing all this work on myself, sitting with the parts that judge and criticise, softening towards the ones that protect. I still am navigating a wound around love, about my ability to be enough for one person. But I feel enough for me now. And I know I'm still afraid to open up fully and completely trust one person with all of me. And that's a journey I'm still on. And I'm giving that whatever time it needs. No deadlines, no expectations, no destination, no pressure to be further along than I actually am. Just staying curious and compassionate with the knowing that I can trust myself to keep going through anything, and you can too. There is another side, not perfect, not a side where everything is resolved and nothing is hard anymore, but a side where you can feel sad and still enjoy the walk, where you can still be figuring things out and feel joy. When you wake up and the first thought of the day isn't just to get through it, but to actually wonder, what will today bring?